So a lot of you have asked for a good Coast Guard story. Now here's a sailor story for you. It's not a typical sailor story though. This is not about being on the ocean. This is about a port call, right? So one of the best parts about being a sailor is being able to experience different cultures, being able to go to different countries and see the things and eat the food and meet the people. It's honestly, it was probably the best part of the job for me. And in those days, I was on a Coast Guard cutter and we pulled into a lot of different countries, a lot of different islands, all over the hemisphere and South America and just all over the place. So yeah, people really don't realize how far out the Coast Guard goes. Anyway, so we pulled into Cartagena, Colombia multiple times. It was actually one of my favorite port calls. And whenever we would pull in, we would get a little bit of liberty, right? Some free time if you didn't have duty, if you weren't on watch or security detail or whatever. So whenever we pulled in, the Colombian military, right? They came in to the boat and they brought in an easel, like an old school easel, right? With a big map. And one of these guys plops this easel down on the quarterdeck there, and they pull this map out. And they got all these sailors pulled in there, mustered around it, and they're showing us. And this Colombian military man, this Colombian police officer, whatever you want to call him, he had a pointer, like one of them old school pointers, like he pulled it out, a big pointer, and he started slapping this map, all right? And he's got his military uniform on, and he's slapping this map, and his English is broken, right? It's very broken, but he's telling us where we can travel safely without running into problems. Now, this is the late 90s, and in those days, they would say that Cartagena, Colombia, was one of the worst places for Americans to go and visit. And even though we were, Coast Guard and such forth, we were still Americans. And so they had rules for us. And they were like, okay, you go here, and slap the map. You go here. You do not go here. All right? And then just slapping the map. Do not go here. You go here. Just over and over on the map. And it's, we never been there, never seen Colombia. And I was a quartermaster, I was a navigator, and I was very familiar with charts. He was slapping that map so much, I got confused, right? And I look at one of the chiefs and I'm like, dude, are you keeping up with this? And he goes, nah, man. He says, here's all I can figure. Don't go past the rivers, right? Just don't go over any rivers and you're good. And then he actually said that out loud and he asked the guy, so as long as we don't go over any of the rivers, we're good. And he's like, see, don't go over river. And we're like, okay, cool, that sounds groovy. So they give us liberty, but they had restrictions and they were like, all right, you gotta be in groups of 4, right? And I think you couldn't leave the boat with less than 4 men. So we take off. And I was in a group of 4 or 5 guys, and we were one of the first ones off the boat because quartermasters, that's one of the privileges that we would get. So we were always like the first guys to the boat, and we were normally one of the first guys off the boat. And so whenever we would pull in. So this little group, we were one of the first guys off the boat. And so we start walking around Cartagena, right? We find some food, found a little bar. We're really enjoying ourselves, and we drew a crowd. And I mean a big crowd. Like you would have thought we were rock stars or the Beatles or something. And I mean a huge crowd. And I asked, we couldn't keep them away from it. A lot of them were children and they were begging and we weren't giving them stuff. Like, I don't know, man. They just kind of figured we were Americans somehow. It just spread and everyone found out there's Americans over there. I don't know, but they just started begging. And it got to the point where we couldn't, we didn't know a whole lot of Spanish. We had a hard time communicating. A man comes out of the crowd speaking good English. And he says, I'll help you. And he looks at everybody and he says something and he didn't say it nicely. I don't know what he said, but it wasn't nice. And everyone skedaddled off, right? And I asked him, I said, man, what is going on here? And I said, you would have thought we were the Beatles. You Gen X, you'll get the reference. And he said, man, you know, that's you're Americans, and as tall as you are, with those blue eyes, you stand out like a sore thumb. And I did. You know, I'm 6'5", and I was like a giant walking around. And he said, you're gonna need some help. And so I said, so you're offering? And he was like, see, you know, and I said, okay, you know, and so we pay this guy, like all of the guys that I was with, give him like $20 a piece. And he had a car, and he started driving us around and showing us Cartagena, right? So at one point in the night, I asked him, I was like, man, you know, you are treating us like royalty. I really appreciate it, man. Like, I have never been, you know, had such hospitality. And he says, you know, the amount of money you gave me is going to feed my family for 6 months. He said, it's no problem. He said, anything you want, we're going to make it happen. What do you want? And I said, dude, we have been on the boat for weeks. At that point, we hadn't had a good port of call in about 3 months. And we really wanted to find like a good nightclub, you know what I mean? And just have a good time. So we find this nightclub. I asked this guy, I said, man, we just want to have some fun. We were young. I was in my 20s. And so he says, I got you. So he starts driving, and sure enough, we start going over a river. Not a little river, like it's a big ass river. We're going over this bridge. We're going over this river. And we pull into this barrio, man. Like it was little bitty houses all close together with chain link fences in the front yard and bars on the windows, right? And all the guys, we all start kind of looking at each other and we're like, man, did we just go over a river? One of the guys is like, I didn't see any river, man. Did you see a river? Well, you know, it's pretty dark out there. Whatever. So we convince ourselves that it's going to be cool. And he pulls into this place, and when he gets there, the Colombian military or police, well, I think it's kind of all the same, and don't get me wrong, I'm not 100%. They're already there, and they've got like all these people out front, and they're frisking people and arresting people, and it was bad. And so the guy that was driving us was like, it's no problem, man, we're just going to make the block. We'll come back, it's going to be fine. And so he did. He made the block, he come back, and all of the police were gone. And he pulls right up front. And he says something to the people, and they open the doors. We walk in there, and like half of the crew from our boat is already there, partying their asses off. The cervezas were like 15 cents, and there was beautiful women everywhere. If you've never been to Colombia, you don't know what I'm talking about, but the most beautiful women you've ever seen in your life. For me personally, some of the most beautiful women. And I was married at the time, and I was faithful. I didn't cheat. I really didn't. I was very good. But a lot of those women actually, you know, they tried to come on to me, and I was just hanging out with the guys and drinking cervezas that were very, very cheap, right? And at one point in the night, this woman wouldn't quit. You ever had a woman that's beautiful that just keeps on coming on to you, and you won't take the bait, right? You're not interested. You don't go for it, and then she gets mad, right? I mean, that's what happened to me. And she absolutely started making insults at me about my sexuality and questioning, you know, things and this and that. And at one point, she said, you've got all these beautiful ladies around you, and you don't want to talk to any of them? And I said, man, you know, first go find me a lady, and maybe we'll talk to her, right? And she lost her shit. She grabbed a cerveza bottle, broke it, and came at me. And the security grabbed her as she lunged at me over the table. She jumped over the table and came at me with a broken bottle and came at me because I made that insult. I gracefully made my departure and called it an evening. But I love Colombia. You better be respectful, though. Even if they're disrespectful, you better be respectful. You might get cut. Peace and love. I'm out.